I'm going to start our series with a question for you that I want you to think through. You don't have to answer it out loud, but I want to get your mind thinking about this. What is the most adventurous thing you've ever done? What's the most adventurous thing you've ever done? I mean, maybe it's something that it was scary or super dangerous, but it was the riskiest thing you've ever been a part of. So I want you to think about that. What is that activity, that thing that you have said, okay, this is going to be the adventure of a lifetime. This is going to be risky, like Darlene and I did whitewater rafting this week. Listen, we're getting older. Doing whitewater rafting is a risky adventure at this point for me. As a matter of fact, when I was in elementary school, if you had asked me this question around the first grade, because I didn't have many years under my belt at that point, but by first grade, the riskiest thing that I had ever done in the first grade was when a group of buddies of mine at our school said to me, we had this girl named Amy in our class, and they all dared me to kiss Amy. And I was a first grader. I had never kissed a girl before, so I didn't even know exactly how to pull that one off. And so we devised this plan that when we were walking outside to recess, I had to stand behind Amy, and the boys would push me into Amy, and that would be my chance to plant one on Amy. Well, let me just say, to keep the story a little short, it didn't go quite as planned. When I got pushed, I hit the back of her head, and I split my lip open, and I got this huge fat lip. Now, I can say I planted one on Amy then, and it would be what I could consider my first ever kiss for Amy, but I really got a big, fat, bloody lip on that day, and that was my height of adventure at that point. So I'm asking you, what is the most adventurous thing you've ever done? When I was in middle school, I think I've shared this story with you before. When I was in middle school, my dad was a softball player. I was an athlete, and my dad was a softball player, and he played on the church softball league. We played against other churches, and if you've ever played in a church softball league, whew, man, praise the Lord for those. Nothing but good old-fashioned fighting in those things. And so he played in the church softball league, and behind the diamonds, behind the softball complex, was a wooded area, and I had this friend, and we would go back behind the woods and do all kinds of crazy stuff. But he showed up one time with, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a bag of chewing tobacco. Now, okay. I mean, I knew people that had done this stuff. I didn't really know them. I didn't hang with those people. I was in a pastor's home. And so I'm in middle school, and he was like, come on, David, just try some. I didn't even know what to do with this stuff. And so, I had to act like I was all cool and all, so I just reached into this little pouch. For all of our younger crowd in here, please don't do as I did, do as I say. And so I reached into this pouch, and I grabbed out this big thing, and I stuck it in my cheek because I watched baseball players do it. I stuck it in my cheek, and I thought, this is really cool. I'm really cool. Until a few minutes went by, and I started, kind of like, whoa, man, I don't feel very good, and I'm like stumbling around. We made our way over to a little, like a 7-Eleven type of place on the other side of the street. I was miserable. And I had this big thing of chewing tobacco in my mouth. It didn't even taste good. I'm just doing it because of peer pressure. And I got so sick, so I went behind the 7-Eleven. I lost everything I had had for breakfast that morning behind the 7-Eleven. And I went into 7-Eleven, and I bought, if you'll remember, Hubba Bubba. As a matter of fact, in a message I did several years ago, I was preaching. I had Hubba Bubba raspberry flavor on the stage with me. To this day, I still have a disdain for raspberry flavors because I thought in order to wash this out, I'll choose some raspberry bubble gum. That didn't work. I was just miserable. So when I say what is the most dangerous, scary, maybe crazy, adventurous thing you've done, man, at that point in my life, that was probably the height of adventure for me, was that I chose to rebel against everything that, and my dad's watching today, so he now hears a new story about me. I constantly am confessing things that I did as a kid. But it's remarkable to me that there are times in all of our lives where we are living out something that we would classify as adventurous or dangerous. And if you're going, man, if that's the most dangerous thing, again, I was middle school. That was about as risky as I got at that point. And obviously, I could share lots of different stories. I was the guy that riding roller coasters wanted to raise my hands. You know those people. I was that guy. I didn't want to hang on to the bar. I wanted to raise my hands. Darlene actually taught me how to do that because she was the adventurous one in the roller coaster game. There was a phrase that I read years and years ago. I've mentioned it before. I love this phrase. It's from Helen Keller. She says this: life is either a daring adventure or it is nothing at all. It's an interesting phrase that I read years ago. There's a lot of people that push things to the limits that is beyond wise or safe. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to just watch this quick video, and then I'm going to make a connection for you. So check this out of some wise, actually unwise, and unsafe things. All right. Now, I think when you watch a video like that, and if you've ever watched videos like this, you know there are just some people that do some dumb things in life. They're not wise. They don't make good moves. I am one of those guys sometimes. I've done some stupid stuff. Now, listen. Most people in the world, when it comes to adventure and doing risky things, fall into one of two categories, and you're going to find that you fall into one of these two categories. You're either in the play it safe category, and you might be going, man, count me in, I'm in the play it safe category, or you fall into what I'll call the risky category or the risk taker category. So you're in either the play it safe or you're in the risk taker category. Most people fall into one of these two, and here's what's interesting. The older I get, the wiser I get, the more I find myself in the play it safe genre. I find myself kind of landing there. Now, it's been a while since I've ridden a roller coaster at an amusement park, but a few years ago with David Jr. and our oldest daughter, Danielle, we went down to Universal Studios and we rode the Hulk together. Maybe you've ridden the Hulk, this ride. Now, I liked riding roller coasters back in the day, but I don't enjoy them anymore. There's just something, I just don't enjoy them anymore. I was really just doing it because I wanted to be with my kids. We finished this, I'm feeling really bad, I'm feeling kind of woozy. And they're like, come on, let's go ride the rock and roller coaster. Let's not just ride it, let's get in the front car and ride it. I'm going to tell you, this is literally what went through my mind when I got into the front car with David and we rode the rock and roller coaster. As we're going, he's talking to me. I have no clue what he was even saying to me. Because in my mind, I'm going, why am I doing this? I have nothing left to prove. I've got a wife at home, I've got a nice job, and I've got kids. Why am I riding? And the entire ride, that's how I felt. What am I doing on this ride? Now, if you're a roller coaster fan and you still love riding a roller coaster, I get it. It's the thrill of that adventure. That thrill for me is gone. It's literally now fear for me when I ride this ride. And my heart is pounding and I'm just like, what am I doing? So there are either people that play it safe. Listen, if I'm eating corn on the cob, I don't eat it like she did. I just eat it like a normal person. I play it safe. I don't put some kind of a machine on it to run it around really fast to get it. That's not me. If I were to ride a snowmobile, I'm getting up on the snowmobile. I'm not getting under the snowmobile. Does everybody track with me? There are play it safe people. I'm one of those. And then there's the risk taker people. You know what's interesting, though? I find that in my faith journey, the older and the wiser I get, the more I fall into the risk category. Isn't that interesting? The more in life I walk through this journey called life, I'm in the play it safe, man. I just don't care about riding roller coasters anymore. But when it comes to walking with God in my faith walk, I'm just going to tell you, for me, I find myself a little more on the risk-taking side. I'm a little more aggressive at, okay, God, that's what you want me to do? Okay, I'm all in. That's why every song, the songs we sang today, there was a theme to every one of these. About, am I all in? Am I walking with Jesus to the point that I'm willing to risk it all for Him? That's really what the theme of our worship set was today. So as we walk through this, I'm just going to lay some groundwork for where we're headed today. You're either in the play it safe or the risky side of your faith walk. Which one are you? Now, you might be processing going, I'm not real sure I know where I land on this. Well, again, let me just remind you what Helen Keller said. Life is either a daring adventure or it's nothing at all. So maybe your faith journey, you're the person that has your hands on the front, holding onto the rail. You're white-knuckling the rail of the roller coaster ride in your faith journey. Or your hands are up in the air on your faith journey. And there's a sense of freedom in your faith journey. Not license to sin, not license to be a crazy person. I don't mean it that way. But a sense of adventure that, hey, no matter where God takes me, no matter what God does in my life, man, I can trust Him at all cost that He has me. Jesus was recorded in Matthew's gospel. There were 4 gospels, letters written about the life of Jesus. And in Matthew chapter number 19, actually in Matthew chapter 4, in Matthew chapter 4 is one of my favorite passages of Scripture. As a matter of fact, the very first time I ever preached in this building, I preached from this passage. Now, I'm going to take a completely different take on the passage because I think the Word of God is alive and we can learn something new every time we read it. But it's going to be a familiar passage. If you've read the Bible or you've been a part of Christendom for any time, maybe you know this story or maybe you've heard bits and pieces. So I'm just going to read a portion of it. And we're going to chat about how it applies to our life. Matthew chapter 4. Here's what the Word of God says. One day as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, also called Peter and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, quote, "Come, follow me, and I'll show you how to fish for people." And they left their nets at once and followed him. Can you say that, at once? So Peter and Andrew, professional fishermen, left their nets at once and followed him. A little farther up the shore, he saw 2 other brothers, Jesus did, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, repairing their nets. So we now know they're fishermen as well. And he called them to come to him. They immediately, so Peter and Andrew at once followed. James and John immediately followed him, leaving the boat and their father behind. Now, again, I made the comment, I've preached from this passage a number of times, but I just want to highlight 3 of the words in this passage. At once, there's 2 of them, and immediately. Because all of us fall into one of these 2 categories. We're either just playing it safe with God in our walk with Him, or we're on an adventure, willing to risk for the sake of the kingdom. So these 4 adult grown men, professional fishermen, with their parents, have a business. At once, 2 of them leave, and immediately 2 of them leave. Now, here's what I want you to know about this. From this passage, there's 2 things that kind of stand out to me. There was a call and there's a cost in life. So as we lay some groundwork for where we want to go over the next few weeks, I want you to start to process the invitation that Jesus gives to you to follow him. And that's going to be, we're going to talk about different ways that that happens. But also, what is the cost to follow him? See, in the call to follow him is this invitation to walk towards something. That's what Jesus is talking about. But also in his call of us, this cost is to walk away from something. So I'm walking towards something, but I'm also walking away from something. That's the call and the cost of Matthew chapter 4. That immediately they leave everything because of the invitation to follow him, and they leave behind what they know is familiar. So, as we walk through what God has for us as a church in your life individually, I want to make sure that we understand as a church, it's probably going to have more of a missional context to it. I want to make sure that we as a church understand what God has called us to and what that cost is to follow. Because there is a cost associated with it. It's interesting that in Jesus' life, he has encounters with a lot of different people, but 10 different times in the Gospels, on 10 different occasions, Jesus encounters people in places that are identified as the synagogue or the temple. For the most part, each of these exchanges is Jesus either rebuking them, challenging them, disciplining them in each of these situations. But then there's about 120 different encounters through the Gospels with individuals, people groups, where there is healing that takes place, and there is brokenness that is brought back, and there is life that is brought, or a miracle is brought. Homes are reestablished. And so there are many times in Jesus' life and in his ministry where he encounters people, where he does some type of a miracle in their life. Hey, demons, get out of that man, and the man is relieved of the demons. Hey, sickness, leave that body, and sickness leaves the body. Hey, death has entered into this scene. Come forth, Lazarus, you are now alive. So in Jesus' encounters in the faith journey with people, when he encounters them, there is a wholeness that is brought to people. And so as you and I embark in this conversation both today and over the next few weeks, when you got called to follow Jesus, what did that mean to you? Was that simply, hey, I can pull out a fire insurance card? Man, I got fire insurance. I'm not going to hell. I'm now a follower of Jesus. Or was it a call to an adventure with him, which would involve some risk taking, which would involve some get out of my comfort zone and do something that he's calling me to? Because, man, it's a lot easier to sit in the comfort zone sometimes. It's a lot easier making decisions as a pastor that you feel like, man, well, this probably would please people, but God's calling you to please him. Those are challenging sometimes for me. And so there is a call, but there is a cost associated. Jesus said this in the 9th chapter, and I read it earlier today. Healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. For I've come to call not those who think they're righteous, but those who know they are sinners. Let me illustrate it this way. Is there maybe an elementary or middle school kid that could help me out with something? You would be, okay, hey, there's money involved. So do I have somebody that would help me out? A child? All right, come on, bro. All right, just stand right here. All right. Good to have you down from North Carolina, right? Yeah. Okay, so this $20 bill, does it look real? Feel it. Feels pretty real, doesn't it? All right. It is actually real. But it looks pretty new, doesn't it? It's pretty crisp. Could I give this to you? And you would take it? No problems? Now, it looks really nice, and it's nice and crisp, and it looks really good. So you'd have no problem taking it. What if, though, I did a couple of things to this? Would you still take it? So I'm just going to crumple it. Would you still take it, even though it's all wrinkled up? You'll take anything you can get, okay? What if It's really hot out. I haven't been wearing deodorant lately. Do you still want it? You'll still take it. Interesting. So I've got a wrinkled, messed up, sweaty smelling $20 bill. And you still want it? It's all yours. You got it, man. Here's the point. The condition of the $20 bill didn't change. The value of the $20, the condition actually changed. I wrinkled it up. It might smell a little sweaty like my armpit, but the value of it didn't change. And that's how we are before God. We are wadded up, wrinkled, broken, hurt people. But I want you to know, man, your value hasn't changed to God. Man, Pastor, you don't know what's going on in my life. You don't know how bad it's gotten. You don't know how tragic it is. Man, I may not. But I just want to say to you, no matter how messed up it has gotten, you still have value and worth that is beyond a price tag. God said, here's how much you're worth. I'll send my son. No matter how wadded up and wrinkled, no matter how messed up and broken, no matter how much sin enters in, you have value. And although your condition may look different, your value hasn't changed. When Jesus healed a leper, he didn't look at him and say, well, based on your skin, you don't have any value. No. He had the same value you and I have. He was a soul that God said, my son has come for. When Jesus looked at the woman at the well, her value wasn't based on her profession of prostitution. Her value was placed on her being made in the image of God. I need to make sure we catch that on the front end. Because in this room, watching by way of internet, in this room, you might be somewhat like me, and sometimes you can feel like your condition determines your value. I just want you to know it never changes. Your value, the price tag on your life is so significant. God said, I'll let my son die for you. You know, we have a modern day picture of this in our generation, of this kind of valuing life at all cost. And it just so happens that it's Memorial Day. Men and women that have paid an ultimate price, that said, you know what, I don't care what skin color you've got. I don't care if you're a man or you're a woman. I don't care which side of the railroad tracks you live on. I don't care if you've got education or no education. I don't care if your parents were immigrants or not immigrants. I will go to battle for you and lay down my life so that you can have freedom. Check out this video. I think all of us in this room are grateful for the men and women that have given their life so that we could have the freedoms we have. Amen. I just find it interesting and compelling that they don't look at who we are individually and our condition to base off of whether or not they'll sacrifice. And yet in Christendom, in our life as a follower of Jesus, my experience both as a pastor and before I was a pastor growing up as a PK, way too often I think in the church we place value on the condition of an individual, and then that determines a value. And I want you to know that you've walked into a place today called the fellowship where we're just not going to allow that to happen here. We're going to, There were 4 grown men that Matthew describes here for us. Peter and Andrew, James and John. That said, okay, no matter what my cost is, I've been called to follow. I will leave behind what is behind me, and I will go forward based on the call. So today, if you are a follower of Christ, you have been called to follow Jesus, which means you've been called to help rescue people. You've been called to help advance the kingdom, to take and share the gospel and spread the gospel. We're called to run towards people, not away from people. And yet oftentimes in church world, I see it just the opposite with some. Churches are established to target a particular demography. Man, we're here for every man, woman, and child. We want to reach every man, woman, and child. Well, we're only going to reach the young crowd. Man, I just want to be a pastor that pastors millennials. You're not going to be in business very long. Millennials can't support a church. Well, I'm just going to reach senior adults because they've got the money and we'll have a very wealthy church. Well, what are you going to do about the grandchildren? The millennials. So there's got to be this sense of even-keeled ministry, this sense of balance of how do we do what we do so that we can reach them all. Sometimes that comes with a cost. Let me illustrate it this way. There's an interesting fixture in America. It's an iconic fixture. Maybe even most of you in this room might have one of these. A couch. How many of you have a couch at your house? Okay, a few of you don't. I saw some didn't raise their hand. Yeah, that's your prerogative. You've chosen to sit on the floor or wherever you sit. That's cool with me. Or you've got chairs, a lazy boy. Yeah, that's cool. It's no problem. Thanks for the clarification. So most homes have a couch. You know what's interesting about this iconic American figure called the couch is, would you agree with me that over time, at some point somebody went into a furniture store, saw it and said, boy, that's the colors, it'll match, it's comfortable, whatever they said. And they looked at this couch and said, boy, this is the couch for my house. Man, this is going to be an awesome couch. And over time, this couch serves in a variety of different roles. Maybe your child had their diaper changed on this couch. And there's proof to show for it. Maybe this is the couch where you got a brand new kitten and that kitten clawed it up and snagged it. Maybe this is the couch that you had your first date on. And you brought that special person to your house to sit down on your couch. And y'all hung out on the couch. This might be the couch that you grew up watching your dad like this, with his mouth open. This might be the couch that your family gathered around and watched a movie or watched a sporting event together. Is it fair to say that the couch is somewhat iconic in American culture? And yet at some point, as tattered and beat up and broken. Maybe a leg breaks, maybe the springs in it break. Man, we've had that happen with our couch before, and when you sit down on it, you just kind of sink into it. Anybody ever had that experience with your couch? Okay, a few of you. And at some point when you have guests over to your home, and it's their first time to visit, you're thinking through the process of, do you want them to sit on that couch? Because if you've ever watched a guest come over to your couch and look it over like, and they sit on the edge of your couch because they see the soiled stains, you then start to process, well, maybe it's time to recover the couch, or maybe I'm really going to splurge and I'm going to go get a new couch. But why? It's so comfortable. Man, this is where I can take a nap. I like my couch. I don't care that the guests that come over to my house don't like my couch. I like my couch. Now, if you've ever had that embarrassing couch in your home, where you were embarrassed for a guest to come in and see your couch, you understand this even greater than others. But it's comfortable. It feels good. It wraps around me. Oh, I mean, there's popcorn still in the couch. If I get hungry, I could snack on. Man, there's some peanuts down here. You know what's interesting about this? I'm using this as a metaphor for the church. The church has a lot of couches. They're really comfortable. They're worn. They're used. And man, do we love our couch. And at church, when a visitor sees our couch, they look at it and go, why? Why would you have that? Why would you do that? And we've got lots of couches in the American church. We've got the steeple couch. We've got the stained glass window couch. We got the hymns only couch. And a 20-year-old that walks into church that's never been to church before hears songs that they don't even understand the lyrics to. I've grown up in church. There's some hymns I don't even understand the lyrics to. But we're so in love with our couch, we'll defend our couch. We're so in love with the comfort of our couch. Pastor, don't mess with the couch. We've got in the American church the wooden pew couch. We've got the chandelier couch. We got the King James only couch. We got the Sunday school couch. Lots of couches in the church. Lots of couches that we say, you know what? It looks good, it feels good, it wraps around me really good. I know it's worn, I know it's old, but man, it just feels right. Listen, you've already been reached. Why don't we reach some new people? Some of you don't even understand this metaphor because you're so in love with your couch. You can't see that it needs to be replaced sometimes. Or at least throw a blanket over it, cover it. See, what Jesus has called us to is to reach every man, every woman, and every child with the good news that Jesus saves. And yet sometimes we're so married to the couch that we're not willing to give up in order to reach. The cost is too great. Now, I knew walking in today, this would land heavy on some. I knew it. And it lands heavy on me because there are things in my life in church work that become a really comfortable couch for me. And sadly, there are churches all over America that spend a whole lot of time in meetings and planning strategically with their finances to protect the couch rather than reach the people. And I don't think that's what Jesus intended at all for his church. I think what Jesus intended was that the church would become a place where sick people could come for healing, where broken people could come to be restored, where marriages could be put back together. And yet, too often, at least in my experience, and I've worked with lots of churches, I've coached lots of churches, I'm helping coach a church right now that's so committed to the couch and the way they do what they do, they can't even see reaching people. Here was the question. Talk to me about your strategy to reach your community. What do you mean? Well, tell me a little bit about your strategy. How do you want to reach the people that are around you? I mean, we offer church services of which people have names on seats. And I know we go, oh, come on. This is a good, cool church. But people have got their names on the back of a seat. Now, I'm not looking at beating anybody up over this. I just want you to know that at the fellowship, I want you to hear, we're not going to defend couches around here. We're going to go after people. But that was a quiet room for that one. We're not going to get sideways about the things we love. We're going to get aggressive about the people that we love. And I can tell you unequivocally from the staff and the elder team here, we have said, I will go reach people. We have committed that God has called us to something and that there is a cost to pay, and we will not get locked and loaded on the couch. Man, that couch is comfortable. There's so many memories on that couch. It's just not who the fellowship's going to be. We're going to take our preferences, if they don't line up with what we need to do missionally to reach people for Jesus, and we'll put them out at the curb so fast, it'll make people's heads spin. Now, not everybody in the room is going to like that statement. I get it. I want you to understand. I understand the cost to that statement. I'm just telling you, I feel compelled to the call that we're to reach every man, woman, and child with the gospel, that we will not find ourselves sitting on the comfy couch, doing what is just comfortable for us because we've been doing it for a long time, at the expense of lost people coming to know Jesus. It's not going to happen in this place. Well, Pastor, what about those of us that we've grown up in church? We want these things that we like. Man, I'm not, let's throw out everything. That's not my point. I just think we need to be a church that is more concerned and more consumed with how we budget for lost people than budget for repairing the couch. That's the point I want to make. I heard an old evangelist, Leonard Ravenville, make this comment. Methods are many, principles are few. Methods always change and principles never do. The message of God and the mission never change, but the method does. Did you know that the average church in America runs right at 80 people? The average church in America. I mean, when I read this statistic from Tom Rainer, I thought, how is that even possible? The average church in America averages about 80 people in a Sunday worship environment, and the average church in America sees one convert a year. That's the average. Now, we're also living in an era with the mega church. And there's some really great things about the mega church. I've been on staff at mega church. I get it. Nothing to say negative about the megachurch. I've also been on staff at small church. Here's my point. The methodology of a church cannot be the driver. The mission has to be the driver. Lost people don't care about the condition of the couch nearly as much as we do. Visitors, guests don't care about the condition of the couch quite like you and I do. What they care about is the condition of the people that come in. Do they love me? Are they authentic? Could it be that the church in America is struggling because leadership becomes so focused on methodology of repairing the couch rather than the mission of reaching people? See, this whole story in Matthew about Peter and Andrew, James and John following Jesus, man, there's tons that you can preach on this, and I've done it before. I just wanted to make one simple illustration here. They at once and immediately left everything to follow him. And at some point in all of our lives, we have to come to grips with, what have we been called to? Man, have you been called to follow Jesus? Then what holds you back from taking the risk to follow him? Have you committed that, hey, I'm going to be the follower of Jesus that lets people know that I'm a follower of Jesus? I'm going to let people know that they need a relationship with him? Am I willing to lay down my couch, my own personal preference, so that people could be reached for the gospel? Would you trust Jesus in that manner? Would you live for Jesus? See, healthy people don't need a doctor. Sick people do. And the great physician is Jesus. We have to introduce people to him. So will you say, I will? We have a slogan around here, a phrase around here that we love. Do for a few. I love it. And I'd love to see us in our lifetime, every single home, every child, every man, every woman, I'd love to see them have clean drinking water in my lifetime. I think it stinks that there are people on this planet, millions of them, by the way, that don't have clean drinking water. But we can pack it up and just go, you know what? We're not going to solve all the people in Sierra Leone that need clean drinking water, so what else could I fixate on? And what can happen is we can get really comfortable on our couch. Well, maybe we could just do for a few what we'd like to do for all. I'd love for everyone to have clean water. We were talking about this in the student ministry a couple of Wednesday nights ago. I was in there speaking to our high school, middle school students. And I was sharing with them their activity over the last several years with an organization in Sierra Leone to provide clean water wells. About 50 or 60 clean water wells have now been built in Sierra Leone in the last 10 years to provide clean water. Now, that's just one small piece of this. Now, I'd love for every child that lives within 10 miles of here to be able to have a hot meal all the time. But did you know that's not the case? Right here in our backyard. I'd love for him to. So let's do for a few what we'd like to do for all. Maybe we can't solve it worldwide, but we could do for a few what we'd like to do for all. But it comes to the point of, are you going to live your life in the I'm safe category? Or are you going to be a risk taker with Jesus and say, Jesus, I trust you. I'm just going to follow you. Wherever you take me, wherever you lead me, I will follow. Pastor, you don't understand. Man, maybe I don't, but I think I do. I've grown up in the church. Pastor, you don't understand the couch in our church, man. If we got rid of that, if that left our church, I don't know what we would do. You know, can you imagine the battle in the church when electricity showed up? Well, we can't have electricity in this church. No way, man. The Apostle Paul had no electricity. The Apostle Paul, he didn't have air conditioning. That first century church, man, they just gathered together under the tent in homes. They didn't have plumbing. Well, do we really want to go that far back? Well, let's just be like the old first century church. How would you come here if we didn't have plumbing? Hey, could you tell me where the bathroom is? Yeah, there's a couple of holes out to the side of the church over here. Just walk out there, pull the curtain. That's ridiculous. And yet we watch day in and day out in the Church of America people battling over preferences rather than battling over eternal lives. Let's get serious about eternal lives rather than our couch. That's all I'm saying today. And that's going to lay the foundation for where we want to go over the next few weeks. Are you going to live on a risky adventure with Jesus, or are you going to play it safe? Because when you're called, there's a cost to follow.